This is going to be a tough episode. So, you ready?
Yep.
Everybody, welcome back. We the Patriots Podcast. I'm your host, Sal Assante, and today we have a guest who has not been on here for a while, especially by himself. Last time you were on here was with Zach. So we had Violation, which if you haven't seen that one, go check it out. But the one that we're actually going to connect to goes back almost a year ago now. And it's actually one of our most watched on YouTube. So if you go and check out Where Are We Headed, that's where a lot of this is going to be coming from, and a lot of the conversation kind of been stirring and where we started heading. And we look back and we were looking at clean energy. We were looking at an economy that didn't look too hot, and it was pretty much reeling. A year before that was Afghanistan. So yeah, we look back, and especially this week, we were remembering 9/11, especially with all the football commemorations, everything in New York. I don't know, man. It's a tough thing to remember. You had over 3,000 people died in the scenario. So it's a really tough, and shout out to basically everybody who helped out, especially the people in the fire department, in the first responders, with the police department, everybody who helped out getting that place fixed up. But yeah, I mean, were you even alive for 9/11?
Yeah. 2002.
Yeah, that's weird, right? So I was a little baby. I was like a toddler.
Yeah,
So
I wasn't born yet. I was a year later.
A year later. So, I mean, when you look back, so what is your thought? So this is interesting. What's a fresh perspective on 9/11 from someone at least who
Wasn't there?
Yeah, so how do you think of it? Like, what is it in your head?
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even know what the fuck it was when I first heard of it. Because first time I heard of it, pretty sure I was in school when I first learned it.
Okay.
I was like, 9/11? What was that? So at school, they actually decided to like teach us and everything. And they showed us videos, and when we were in class, I was like, wow, that actually happened. I was like, it's crazy. Because like growing up, we're like hearing these like stories from like, obviously we all heard from it from like history class and everything, like all this past shit. And now we have one that I never learned about that was very recent when I started going to school.
Right.
Wow. That's crazy. I never would have thought that would ever happen.
Yeah, it was barely being taught when I was going through, and I assume that you had to do most of your research on your own to figure out anything more. But when we go into it, and I want to analyze today, kind of looking back at 9/11, and as well as the presidents that came through and oversaw, in my opinion, what looks like a one-party system on its way to one singular track. And that's kind of what I think this episode's going to prove. We have a lot of facts behind it. So without really any further BS about the topic, it's pretty serious, and I kind of want to lay it out quickly and get everything out to everybody pretty much in time. So the first part I do want to talk about is 9/11. So when you were going through school, did you get to learn about, quick militarization, the responses, especially in domestic policy? Did you get to learn about all of that, or what was their angle when they taught? Because I'm sure that they just tried to teach the attack part.
Their angle was the attack, yes,
and then
like their background, and then who responded, like what was the response time, like who got called, what was it going there, whatever. Right.
And so some of the issues that come up with that is just, like I said, the speed. Like how quick they were able to militarize and what they were targeting. They didn't even really know what they were going after. At first, it seemed, especially. They went after Afghanistan first in 2001, and then they went right into Iraq quickly after 2003. But in total, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of civilian deaths, not even talking about military. You're talking just civilian deaths that are accounted for with these two invasions, right? And this was all in response to an attack on our people. Like I said, I mentioned at the beginning of the show, over 3,000 people dead, it's estimated.
I don't know.
Hundreds of thousands?
Sorry to cut you off, but I remember this when we were going to learn about it. We had to have a paper sent home signing that we are okay to learn this because they're showing us videos of like what was happening, like planes going into the Twin Towers.
Right.
I don't know if you guys ever saw about people jumping out the towers,
of course,
hitting the ground, like pound. I'm like, then we had literally signed our waivers saying,
it was good to learn about that. And then you think of all the stuff they don't send waivers home to teach you. And that's the one thing they teach. That's a little odd. How early did you watch someone die on the internet? As a sidetrack. For me, I think it was like 9 years old,
Yeah, it was
dude. Like it was, I think it was like fourth or fifth grade,
like the
right
first.
down the street.
I think like the first ever one I saw was like on Instagram. Probably had to
Okay.
be someone just jumping off a building
Yeah.
and just
Yeah, shit you just see everywhere nowadays, man.
like
But I mean, it kind of ties into what comes in later, though, because the Patriot Act is what happened domestically. That's our policy that started coming in. And
hmm
what that led to was all of the information and wiretapping that they started to do without really anybody asking. It was totally against
hmm
Constitution. If you're really looking at it, you had illegal wiretaps, you had data collection, and you had a bunch of intrusive measures, especially like going into people's homes and bugging stuff where there was just no agreement or no real base, right? So we deal with it today, and everybody kind of thinks of it as the airport security,
Yep.
which is like it's like the front way of looking at the Patriot Act, but it leads into so many different things, and one of the things is social media.
hmm
Okay, it's the way that you're able to speak, right? So you had, I believe that's where Section 215 comes out of the Patriot Act,
hmm
right? So either way, it's a really scary piece of legislation to look back on that we were just so okay with bringing it into our daily lives, really. With all of that being said, you had an economy that was completely failing, and by this time you're born. So
Yeah.
the end of Bush's presidency, when you were starting to, like, for me, I don't know about you, I didn't start really paying attention to politics and or money until I
hmm
was about 12 to 13, and that's because of school.
Yeah.
Like that was when school started to introduce it, and that's when my parents finally like,
hmm
okay, school's going to talk about it, then we'll be a little more open about it.
Yeah.
How's it? What age was it for you?
I'd say probably around the same age.
Like 12, 13, 14,
Yeah.
something like that?
Maybe a little younger if I do remember, but maybe a little younger. But
Okay.
then again, when I was going
Obama
through
years or Trump years?
Obama years.
Obama years. Okay. So it was probably more like when you were towards the beginning of middle school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I guess when I started going to school, they kind of like cracked down on it.
Mm.
They really like did my social studies teacher I had in even high school. He goes, "Listen, we can talk about politics and everything, but I can't give you my opinion and I can't say anything bad about it.
Mm.
I just have to listen to what your questions are. I can answer it to a certain extent, but I can't fully go into it you." And we're all like, "Why?"
And did it end up that he had bias?
It's not that I ended up by it. It's like the school board like didn't want him getting engaged with us
No, no,
like
I
that.
understand that. I'm saying so.
Oh.
After that conversation, did you notice over the year like he had a leaning towards a certain way? Um,
Um,
like did he put ideas in front of you guys, or did maybe the classroom, maybe just his itinerary was supposed to put these type of ideas in front? Because this is Obama time. This has to
yeah,
be.
this is Obama time.
I'm assuming this is Obama's era.
Well, when I was in high school, it was going to the Trump and
That's
Biden era.
that's
That's
when
when
you
it was
switch.
switching over.
Yeah, that's when you switch.
So people had their opinions,
Right.
and like it was weird because the kids would debate it, but like the teacher couldn't say nothing. He
Interesting.
just heard them out.
And they held pretty true to that, you would say?
Yeah, in one of my social studies classes, a kid was for Biden and a kid was for Trump.
Yeah.
And the girl, I'm not gonna say girl, sorry. The person who was voting for Biden was like heavy on him,
Okay.
and the guy for Trump was heavy on him.
Okay.
And like these two are like going back.
Yeah.
And like we're all just sitting there like,
Just
damn,
watching.
okay. And we're looking at the teacher like, are you gonna jump in and say nothing? Like, are you gonna do something? He's like, and then that's when we asked him, we're like, why didn't you like
Yeah.
ease into it? He's like, I can't really say what I would do. It's more so I'm just hearing you guys out. I give you a little bit of inspiration.
Right.
I was like,
Well, that's kind of how it was for us too when we were debating, and a lot of times. So, like when I was going through, it definitely was. Second half of my high school was Trump. First half was still Obama. So yeah, I mean, I had that, but all this stuff starts leading into like Obama's presidency when it starts to shift. You had crashing economy, right? So that's where I was kind of going with that, wondering if that was hard felt on your family, especially once you had really, I think starting in 2007 all the way up until about 2013 is when things started really feeling almost normal again.
mm-hmm.
Did you guys feel that in I don't want to say necessarily your household, you don't have to make it that personal, but did you start to notice things like that around you? Was that made aware? that we're not in great economic times at the moment?
Definitely.
Because that's a young age for you. That's
that is a young age.
That's like 7. That's what? You're probably 5, 6, 7, 8 years old at that time.
So, I mean, for an 8-year-old, you kind of notice little things, but then again, your mind as an 8-year-old, you're like,
you're not on that.
It's just like, it's just a thing. It's fine. But like now that like I'm older and like, quick example, gas for my truck. When I first started driving, $20 would be like 10, 11 gallons. Perfect. Fill me up. Now for $20 or like $40, I get like 8 gallons.
Yeah, it's bad.
I'm like, this is shit.
Yeah, it's bad.
Because I like remember $20 would get you anywhere. Anywhere I wanted to go would get me there and back.
10 gallons. It was 10 gallons.
Now it's like, shit, now I really need to like plan out my gas schedule and where I can go during the week so I don't waste all my money.
Yeah.
Because now that I own a truck, it's 10 times worse because...
And then you got to worry about servicing it, and then you got to worry about all the rest of it. That's also more expensive.
Especially like all the shit's going up. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yep, dude. It's really crazy. But that's when you started to feel it in the Obama years, and it was, for you, probably almost invisible. For me with my dad, and especially with the business, it was very visible. And he started to become vocal, like I said, at that time, especially once Mitt Romney was up against election. And the reason being was because we had to start doing debates in class, and we had to start, not necessarily debates, but we were watching the debates and then analyzing. We would write a synopsis of who we thought might have won and whatever. And I was starting to go through, and there was obvious leanings by my teacher to the left side. And my dad was there behind me, like, you don't have to necessarily listen. Like, just put on whatever you have to do, whatever. And I ended up getting decent grades even with my opinions back then, which was interesting in that class. Ended up being fine. But that's when I started getting introduced, and that was Obama years. That was when it was clear that economic hardship was on us, especially with the business here. It was obvious, and I think a lot of that was due to his spending plans. You see like a doubling in the national debt just under his, so it went from 10 to 20. Right? And I think you start to see the slow roll of the spending that I don't think we could stop nowadays. I think that's what you start seeing, right? And it starts to prepare us for this green energy movement that you're seeing now that we've talked about before, right? Talk a little bit about Jerry Lehman and what he was talking about with the offshore wind, right? All this stuff starts coming into play under Obama's presidency, really, is when it really starts kicking up steam. Right? Everything else was privatized up till that point. And then you had this, you had the Affordable Care Act, which just tried to nationalize healthcare. That skyrocketed debt as well. And then you also had basically politicization of everything. And I think that because of that, you lead into Trump. Really. That's when I'm sure you started paying attention.
I was going to say, I really started paying attention to the Trump and Biden one. That's when I really like started listening, see what they were saying and everything. And when I was in high school, one of our assignments was to watch it and like get familiar with it or whatever, because we were going to class the next day, not to like fully discuss it, just like touch little things like what'd you see, what'd you notice, what they talk about, whatever. So like we just basically did that, and that's when I really like started taking to like my own thoughts and be like, okay, now that I'm getting older, I really start paying attention to shit. Because at some point, I'm gonna be at that age being like, wow, this shit's gonna affect me at some point or age. Like right now, it's affecting me a little bit, but as I'm getting older, like going to school, going to do what I want to do, if I want to raise a family or something, I need to know what I'm going into.
Correct. Yeah, make sure you have safety, or you're making a decision that's going to propel yourself in the future. Yeah, it becomes a very stark thought, and it's good that you had that at least in high school, not after. Right? But leading into the Trump presidency, you can make a lot of for and against, but if you keep it really, really simple, right? In my opinion, pre-COVID, and I think the numbers back it up, numbers are fantastic. Employment especially, right? The just the job market and also the approval rating was fantastic, especially in the job market. And COVID comes and basically just slams a hammer into every plan that he had. I think he completely fumbled the actual handling of COVID. I think with mixed messaging and allowing people to go out and say that you need to go take this, wait for this, and all this, and wear this, and he had no clear message because he didn't really, I'm sure, know what to do, which is fine. I think that's why he got hurt. if he had a clear, decisive message and it worked or didn't work, whatever, he would at least be able to move on.
Yeah.
But he let it linger for so long, and it ended up really tanking the economy for a bit. Took a while to come back, and by the time it really was, you had election time. And I think that's when it really led into what we had. And one thing I do really want to note, okay, between the Obama and the Trump presidency, there's a couple of differences, two key differences I want to point out. Number one, well, one's a similarity, I should say. Trump spent just as much as Obama did. Only problem, one term.
Yep.
One term. And he spent $10 trillion, or at least that's what goes on the national debt. So you look at it that way, Trump was not fantastic when it comes to that aspect, not even a little bit, okay? And now when you're also looking at it from a different point of view, I think it was fantastic, and that's one thing is he started pulling out of the Middle East, okay? And he started doing it strategically, at least it seemed like. Okay, he had some bold foreign policy negotiations with North Korea and Russia, right? But that actually seemed to be holding the line pretty strong. And when you dive back into the history, like we will a little bit with the other presidents and vice presidents involved, they weren't so clean and they weren't so forthright with what was going on, and it's hurting us now, okay? Now, the issue there is Trump, when you look up like the drone strikes compared to Obama had so many unwarranted deaths. He contributed heavily to those numbers we talked about earlier, where we're talking about hundreds of thousands of civilians dead. He contributed a lot to that, not just Bush.
Yeah.
He contributed a lot to that. And that started to, I don't think it stopped at all, I'm not trying to say that, but it started to reel back and be more decisive under Trump. And I think that was true. There was a lot less headlines about people getting striked or just unnecessary attacks. That really did start to come out of the headlines.
Yeah.
Whether that's all his people or not, the numbers do back it up. The drone strikes are just lower, right? 100%. And you get into COVID, like I said, we lose our guy. Okay, we lose the guy that half are going to say is fantastic and half's the end of the world, and we get this guy Biden. That's where it ties us right back to 9/11 then. Because it brings us back to Afghanistan, where he tries to pull out. He basically hands a country to a terrorist organization, gives them a whole slew of weapons, and they're also connected to Russia, which is the really scary part that people don't like to talk about, right? Russia backs them. Russia backs Al-Qaeda. So I'm sure, and this is just going on a limb, no facts on this sheet that shows this, but their weapons more than likely went up to help this Ukraine war. The weapons that they seized from us, more than likely. Let's just be honest here. All right? Now, not only that, we see skyrocketing in the national debt as well, just continuing. That's never going to stop, I don't think.
That's never going to stop.
And you just have this poor handling of everything, and the worst of it, I think, is when you look back at the past of Biden, unfortunately. I'm done talking history until we go into the deep stuff, dude. Of that stuff, does any of that stuff blow your mind, or is it just unfortunate?
Never really blows my mind, just unfortunate, really. I mean, just sucks the way shit just turned out.
Yeah.
Like, as you look back and compare shit, it's getting worse.
Yeah, definitely.
As we keep on getting older and older, I just feel like it might be like a slim term, but I just feel like as we keep going, it's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Right, and if you're looking at certain metrics, like especially the spending, we really haven't reined that in. We haven't fixed that.
I know.
It's a problem that we're not fixing, and I don't see how, by the time we're having kids, how are we not at $50, $60 trillion?
Exactly.
Right? This stuff is snowballing, man. And so before I even start talking about Biden's past, have you ever looked at this stuff? Because this is only one facet of it, and it's nasty.
Some shit, yes.
Yeah.
Some no.
Dude, this stuff gets to be pretty messed up. Here's the issue. Here's the issue with this Biden guy, all right? He was working as the front man in Ukraine.
That one I knew.
Now, this is because he was the vice president at the time. Okay, Obama, I assume, said it was totally fine for him to take on this high horse of a task. And what you ended up having him oversee was basically the overthrow of a government. Okay, you had the pro-Russian president that was the president of Ukraine removed, all right? and basically pushed in this government that we supported, quote unquote. But what was it actually doing behind the scenes? Well, this is the issue here. All right. Now, this is where we get into Hunter Biden. And you keep hearing this name all over the headlines. And I think even today he was just indicted for a gun crime. Okay. Mm-hmm. The issue is that if you look at all the other crimes that he's getting sweethearted out of in this same gun crime, it relates back to stuff like this. Okay. He got offered a job in 2014. All right. On the board of this company called Burisma. Now, I believe it's just a holdings company, but it's mostly focused on natural gas or just oil production. It's really an energy supplier. Mm-hmm. All right. This guy was getting paid $50,000 a month. Now, he can say whatever he will. He has no experience in natural gas and definitely no experience in Russia prior to this. It's pretty clear he's getting paid, at least allegedly, for being a Biden or having a connection, right?
Having a connection.
Now, the connection can clearly be made when you bring it just straight back here. When you're talking about Biden putting under pressure, you remember that big thing where he was saying, and we got the prosecutor fired, right? Mm-hmm. You can go find this clip all over the place.
Yeah.
And what did the son of a bitch do? He got him fired. Mm-hmm. He's talking about Victor Shokin. Mm-hmm. He's talking about Victor Shokin, who is the guy, he's the prosecutor that was going after Burisma Holdings. This is the company that was funding Hunter Biden and in turn funding Joe Biden's whatever he had to do at home, right? This is not to talk about the Chinese connections, not to talk about anything else, because you have WhatsApp text messages, you have all this crap coming out, but this is verified, 2014, okay? This ain't any time new. I heard about this stuff in 2016 for the first time. All right. Now, the fact that I could guarantee more than half, if not probably the large percentage of my listeners have no idea what I'm talking about right now. All this stuff is going to be available for you guys to go look at because it's messed up. When you see this stuff for the first time, you start going down a rabbit hole, man, and you start to see how much money was tied to, how many different decisions were made, even on a more local level in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. What does it make you think when you know about the war that's going on right now?
Something's fishy about it.
Something's fishy? How much money have we been sending over to Ukraine, man? Billions?
Billion?
Hundreds of billions?
Yeah,
right?
Billions at least.
Over to this government that we've already have documented evidence of Biden helping out or being helped out by, right?
Yeah.
He's going to get a favorable prosecutor who's going to take care of the corruption. What if you're the corruption, dude?
Yeah, what if you are?
Like, there is...
crazy.
I just don't. So honestly, after seeing this, so I hope I put some stuff that you never seen before in front of you. After seeing that, what do you make of that? That connects 9/11. All the presidents in line.
And at the end of it,
we have a giant war that we're looking at right now.
Or China and Russia.
Yeah. And I don't think it's just that. If you really look at it over the past 20 years, if we're being honest with ourselves, we've had a whole bunch of proxy wars and we're just not calling it World War III because that's what it is. We have wars going on everywhere.
Yeah.
Constantly. I don't think that we're being told the full truth on anything, man.
I don't think we are either. I think there's something behind closed doors that America doesn't know. Even the people don't even know. Because shit just doesn't add up.
This is on you guys, though. I gotta say, this is on you guys. This is on us to wake up. I think even Jerry said it last show, man. The Americans, we need to wake the hell up.
We need to realize.
You have to do some of your own research, too. You can't just get this stuff from CNN, Fox News. You can't even get it from the Daily Wire sometimes. You need to go a little deeper, man.
You can't, people turn on news and stuff, and they're going to listen to whatever those fucking news report. That's not the truth. No, that's just them putting it out there. But you need to go in forward and be like, oh, shit, this might be a real problem. I mean, you all use your phones. You all use computers. Like, this ain't new.
No, dude. I could not agree more. And I want to just put this out there. It's kind of like stuff. I don't want to step on toes or cross lines all the time, but this is stuff I think as Americans, we need to come together and realize that we have problems that are deeper. And I think it carries through both parties. I don't think it's one side or the other. I think this corruption is so sickeningly deep. It's become what everybody likes to call the uniparty. It exists. It's a giant clump of fat, in my opinion, that needs to be trimmed.
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
This goes back to the debt we're in.
Yes.
I just took a college class last semester. Mm-hmm. Yeah, last semester. And we were talking about all these other countries who, like, are poor, who have good... class was called Poor and Rich. That's what it was called. And
did you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
No, we didn't. I don't think so.
Should.
No, I think we did. But we would read, like, articles about, like, say, like, a tsunami hit, like... Fuck, what was that? I forgot the country it was in. Shit.
Japan.
No, there's some... Fuck. What was the name?
Thailand.
I'll come back to me later. Why?
Thailand?
Might have been that.
Okay.
But there was a tsunami that hit whatever. And, like, obviously, it was a poor country. It was a way less poor country. I forget the name. I did a project on it, too. I have it on my phone, but I'm not going to look at it right now. But, so they were hit, whatever, blah, blah. So as we're going into this, we lend money, we help them out, whatever. And this one person in my class goes to the teacher, and he goes, you know, like, our $1 trillion debt we're in for the U.S.? He goes, yeah. Like, this is a class he actually would give us his feedback, and I liked it. He's like, why are we in so much of this? Like, I understand we're giving money, we're paying military, all that shit. He's like, but we keep complaining about it, but, like, is there a solution to it? And the teacher goes, yeah. He goes, you live in America, we can get rid of that debt if we want to. I was like, how the fuck do you get rid of $1 trillion debt in a matter of seconds?
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Because that's what he said to us, and, like, he didn't expand on it. And, like, I'm just sitting there like,
all right,
we can really pay that.
So here's the thing. More than likely,
if it's off topic, we can talk about it later. But
no, I actually like it as a side shot, but I think
you were
more than likely what he's talking about is a plan where you're getting together the actual economic minds, putting them together in a room and telling them to solve the problem, and then listening. That will not happen, but we could do it.
Yeah.
And I think he's right. Okay, so, and the reason that I say this, and I'm going totally hypothetical though, if you listen to, I believe Warren Buffett answered this question specifically. He was asked, what would you do about the debt? You said that you would be able to clean it up in a minute. What would you do? And his answer, so I don't think this would necessarily work, but the fact that he's thought about this goes to show I think it's possible. He says, well, if I had power to do so, I'd sign in a law that said anytime that the debt overcomes a certain percentage of our GDP as a nation, the Congress needs to come together, or they get fired, or they get taken out. It basically said, like, you lose your job, like, you actually have accountability. I think that's probably part of the solution. Who in our Congress or even in our government totally has accountability?
You answer me?
Yeah. Oh. The answer to that is, it's rhetorical though. The
answer
answer to that is basically no one.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you have people accountable. That's probably what he's talking about. And you get together smart minds that actually think about money all day instead of think about wars, because you need politicians. That's absolutely true. Just like you need scientists, just like you need economists, right? But the point is, like, if the economists know how to solve the issue, which maybe the economists don't, but maybe the business people do, maybe you should think about having more business people there. That's probably his answer, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So you got, Danny?
Yeah, that's what I was very curious.
I think that's a good opening or a closing question. Good point to leave it off. If you guys have any more questions, go reach out to us over on wethepatriotsmedia.com. We got our shop available now. Go share the show if you thought this was a fun episode, if you thought you learned something, or if you just want to dunk on us. I don't really care. Danny, it was good having you back, dude.
Good to be back.
Let's not let it take 6 months anymore.
Yeah, sorry.
It's all good, my guy. Everybody else?
What's 6 months?
Till then.
Damn. I wish I were the fucking state. I wanna be something, not nothing. Trapped inside my dream and I'm running away from these demons. But the feeling's so good, I'ma keep dreaming.